So this is a video that I didn't originally think to make its own individual video. I originally put the review of this cutting disc by Mad Dog Tools in the middle of another video, one of my trailer build videos. I reviewed this and kind of showed how it works, but what I didn't do is I didn't really compare it to a traditional, one of these carbon fiber cutting discs. So I went and bought myself, because my previous cutting disc was almost nothing but gone. And so I went and got myself a brand new one, so I'm starting with something new. But I wanted to compare the two. I want to compare their cutting and show, kind of how one performs over the other. So diamond cutoff wheel plus flush grinder, and then just the Dewalt cutoff disc. This is what I was using before I bought this, was one of these. First things first, this entire thing is coated in diamond dust that's epoxy to a tempered steel disc. So not only can this thing cut, right, but it can also flush grind as well. And I've actually, honestly, I've used it for more grinding than I have cutting. But also it's going to handle heat better than one of those, and it won't explode. So right off the bat, these things just scare the ever-living daylights out of me. These just kind of make me nervous. I mean, they sure do cut well, but they cut everything well. So let's get into this. What I am planning to do is I'm planning to show how both of them cut, and I'm going to cut through a piece of 11 gauge steel with both of them. So the same size piece they're going to cut through, and I'm going to time them and see which one cuts faster. And then we'll also get into talking about some other points between these two, such as price point, right? Which one's more expensive? Which one do you think is more expensive? You can probably guess which one's more expensive. And is it worth it, How many times are you going to go through one of these, whereas this thing will last you who knows how long? I mean, like I said, it has a lifetime warranty on it. How long until one of these things needs to get replaced if you're just cutting steel with it? And then just one last thing to consider while I do this review is that these are 4.5-inch discs. Obviously, you can get bigger in either one of these, but I am doing it on my little 5-amp angle grinder that I got from Harbor Freight. It's one of the Performance Tool ones. Maybe you have a bigger, better angle grinder or something that's higher amperage or something like that, so you might not have the exact same experience as far as performance goes that I have with this angle grinder. And with that, this angle grinder is old. I've been running with this angle grinder since I was probably about 16 or 17 years old. And so, something to keep in mind, I guess. Just wanted to put that information out there. This is one of the variables in my little test here. So the first one I'm going to do is the Dewalt cutting disc, and we're just going to cut through this half piece of square tube here, 11 gauge steel, like I said before. So we're going to go ahead and do this one and time this. All right, that's the Dewalt cutting wheel, how quickly and cleanly that cuts through. Now, here's the Mad Dog cutting wheel. So let's talk about what we saw there. So I would say, as far as how quickly one's going to cut through the other, they both seem pretty quick, but I would say that the Dewalt, definitely cut through faster, and it noticeably made a narrower cut. So if that's something that, that you're looking at, as far as making a clean cut, I would say that this one, the Dewalt disc, actually made a cleaner cut. And I think the reason why would be because on the Mad Dog cutoff wheel, there's all the gritty diamond on both sides, so it's kind of grinding it as it goes through as well. So this wheel's faster and makes a cleaner and narrower cut. And then another thing to think of, and you might have caught this when I was doing it, I didn't get any kickback on this. This didn't bog down my grinder. Now, that's the reason why I brought up that my grinder is just, it's an old, used 5 amp, angle grinder, performance tools from Harbor Freight from, 10, 15 years ago. So maybe it's just kind of weak and it's not really up to the task anymore, and I should have probably replaced it, 10 years ago. But the Mad Dog one, it did bite. It bit a couple times, and kind of like, using it off this video, and I was kind of hoping it would do it to me here, but if you're with this angle grinder, if I'm using this for an extended period of time, not just cutting through a little piece of 11 gauge steel, it will actually stall out my motor on my angle grinder. And once again, I think that's because of all the grit on the sides, and so it's not just cutting on the cutting edge of it, it's also grinding and, catching on the sides as well as it's cutting through. As far as a clean cut, it's a little bit more of a messy cut, but here's the thing. If you make a cut with one of these and it's a little bit unclean, right? Then you have to switch to a grinding wheel or a flap disc and clean up that cut. Whereas with this isn't just a cutting wheel, it's also a flush grinder. So if you're cutting and then you have a little bit of cleanup work to do afterwards, you don't even have to turn off the angle grinder. You just pull it out of the cut, right? And then you just start, grinding away off of either side of it. And you can grind, at slight angles or flush with whatever the material you're using. And it works pretty great as a grinder. And that's a huge benefit to this thing that I actually really like. I kind of go back and forth mentally on which one I want to use when I'm cutting. And that's the reason why I still have some of these. But man, it is pretty nice. If you have 2 angle grinders, you can have one angle grinder set up to just grind, and you can have another one set up to cut. More power to you. But being able to just cut and then immediately, without even turning it off, don't even take a break, just start grinding and doing a little bit of cleanup work, right? And you don't have to switch over. Pros of the Dewalt cutting disc. Pros: it's fast. It makes thinner or narrower, cleaner cuts, and it's fast, right? Tried and true. People have been using these for a long time. Cons: these things wear down not super fast. The Dewalt ones are actually really nice, but these things do wear down, and then when they get too worn down, if they get dropped, if they get damaged, if you go cattywampus with them, like if you go kind of crooked with them while you're cutting, they'll explode and shoot pieces everywhere. Mad Dog cutting wheel. Pros. The thing is, I'm going to say in quotes, indestructible. Nothing's indestructible. But this thing, you can bash it against things. You can smack it into, rotor discs, cinder blocks, bricks, right? Cement. It's a diamond cutter. It'll cut through steel. It'll cut through wood. It'll cut through PVC. And that's another thing too. If you need to cut some PVC or something like that, because this thing dissipates heat, and I have used it to cut PVC, because this thing dissipates heat really well, it'll cut through PVC without heating up too much and starting to melt the edges around it and make a mess. So it's actually pretty good for that too. So pros, right? This thing will cut through anything, and it's a flush grinder, so you don't have to switch over like we already talked about. This thing will just, it'll cut and then it'll grind, or it'll cut and grind both at the same time. Cons: it is a little bit slower. And because of the way that it's designed, where it's an abrasive compound on there, instead of just being, a cutting wheel made out of carbon fiber and whatever, it does bite more. So if you get on kind of the wrong attacking edge of it, it might bind up your grinder, and stall out the motor, bring it to smoke if you're overworking your grinder or something like that. So it is a little bit more stress on your grinder that you're using on it. And then other than that too, I would say on the same note that it's awesome that it can grind and cut, it's also grinding while it's cutting, so it kind of makes a mess, and it tends to bite even more because of that when you're in the middle of those cuts. So that would be what I would say is the cons of this. Another thing, and this isn't a pro or con. This is kind of for you to make the choice, right? Where do you stand? What are you willing to pay for something like this? How much does one of these cost? These things are I think they're like $3, $4 at your local hardware store. You could probably get them even cheaper online and buy like a 2-pack or a 3-pack or something like that. These are cheap. And also, like I said, like I've used the Dewalt ones. That's the only discs I've ever used for cutting is the Dewalt ones, and they last quite a while. This, when I bought it and I got it on sale, like it was like post SEMA or whatever last year. I want to say that I paid like $250 for this. I'm gonna post the price of what they're at while I'm like at the time that I'm making this video. This 4.5-inch tempered steel diamond cutting wheel isn't cheap. It isn't cheap. But they do come with like a lifetime guarantee. So it's kind of one of those, you're only going to pay for this tool once. I wouldn't say that that's a con, that it's really expensive. It is a nice tool. And I like from the looks of it, Mad Dog tools are all really nice. So I don't really know what else to cover for this review / comparison. I hope that that's a good amount of information for you if you're trying to decide if you want to buy one of these or if you just want to see how they stack up against a regular cutting wheel. Like I said, I put a simple review of this in one of my trailer make videos, and I was just kind of thinking about it, and I was like, I kind of feel like I should make its own individual video just for this to show how it stacks up against a regular cutting wheel and why would you choose one over the other. So if I had to make a decision right now and say that I'm going to swear off one and only use the other, I would go with the Mad Dog cutting wheel. That's the one that I would, if I could only choose one, I would choose this. It is spendy, but I trust that it's not going to, and I've already said this 100 times, that it's not going to blow up in my face, and I like the versatility of it compared to the other cutoff wheels. So that's where I'm at with that. I hope this video was helpful to you. Please give it a like, subscribe, comment. If you have any questions about anything else between the two of them or whatever, please let me know. And I'll see you guys next time.